Hello and welcome to The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast, as voted on by us, the hosts of The Back Podcast, Australia's favourite gaming podcast. It's Monday, the 9th of May, 2022. I am Nick Richardson, and today I'm joined by Peter Burns.
That is true.
And he likes to be watched. It's Reeves.
It is me. How you going, guys? Lovely to be here.
It is a delight to have you here. As always, I steal the intro for the guest from their Twitch About Me page.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like you may have revealed more information than anyone that we've had on the show.
Didn't realize that was a bio thing. I thought, like in a Tinder profile, it's like, what do you like? Like to be watched. And I thought that could easily transfer over to Twitch. So here we are.
So this is your Tinder bio as well?
Oh, yeah. Definitely.
Okay,
like
cool.
to be watched at all times. Look me up.
I do find it stressful is not the right word because that's putting far too much weight on this. But the having to come up with little bios for all the different like social platforms and stuff that we're on, because some of them are more serious and some of them aren't. Like how much do you want to reveal about yourself? And the Twitch one for me is the worst because it's like basically sum up in one sentence the reason that I deserve your undivided attention for hours at a time. And I think you nailed it.
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, why cut through the whole, long walks on the beaches, that type of thing? It's like, I like an interactive experience. People are on Twitch to be watched, and I like to be watched on Twitch. So just cut through it. Just everyone, that's a piece of advice. Just say what you really mean.
Beautiful.
Well, you like to be watched, and we like to watch you. We're a big fan of you. But for people who are listening as a podcast or watching right now who don't, for some reason, know who you are, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do on Twitch.
Sure. So I basically run a Twitch channel, shocker, surprise, and we set it in a kind of late night studio. And we do variety games. So it's kind of like, as we said before, it's interactive. And I really like talking to the chat more than anything. Sometimes we'll just watch those paranormal ghost videos that aren't really real. Like I heard a noise in the bushes and we rip the crap out of it. And it's great. And I love doing that. So I do streaming. I also do some editing for YouTube. And I've started podcasts as well, not in direct competition. It's a podcast about content creation by content creators, just talking about content creators. So let's just plug that in. Stream Room. That is a plug. We don't talk about gaming news, but if we did,
it would be a 5-star.
Yeah, look out,
back room.
As far as I was aware, we are the only podcast on the internet, so I take this as a personal affront.
Slight. I'm sorry. I didn't want to break it like
here,
this.
mate.
Apologies.
But
yeah.
If you haven't been watching Reaps, I thoroughly recommend. Like, I think if you like Back Pocket, you will love a Reap show. Don't you think, Pete?
Absolutely. I hate Reaps because Reaps does Back Pocket with just himself.
Yeah,
it's as entertaining as us, as production quality is as high as us, and he streams for longer than us, and he's still alive somehow. The stamina of this man.
Thank you again for that plug. I'll give you the $50 afterwards, as agreed upon. But yeah, no, very much. When we did PogPix, if you don't know what PogPix was back in the day, I got to go into the amazing studios that the Back Pocket crew have. And we did this kind of live show, like a variety show. And it was just amazing.
Just to clarify, back in the day was 6 months ago. This wasn't like 10 years ago.
Long ago, the pandemic. I went and I just saw how professional it was. And I was like, I got to up my game. So hence I've done like a whole reboot on the studio, which I launched in March. And I was like, I got to get up to the level that you guys are giving, because obviously, how am I supposed to survive?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's good that we're all here laughing about the fact that we're eating from the same pie constantly and we're still friends. No, it is such a delight to have you here. We've been wanting you on the show for ages because we just love your stuff, man. And you're so entertaining.
Vice versa. Thank you.
Yeah, make sure you're still entertaining on this show. And I feel like we should get on with it, Pete, because I feel like this gaming news is not going to break itself. The Backup is presented by one of our top Stitch patrons and the best evil person we know, the Anti-Santa. He comes 364 days a year. It steals toys from you. So look out for the anti-Santa. Sorry, I mean Evil Spy Boy. Evil Spy Boy is the best evil person we know. Get your exclamation mark Spy Boys out in the chat because thanks to his generous Patreon support, Evil Spy Boy is bringing you the backup. And he's hoping you bring the generosity to Food Bank Australia. Food Bank provides regular breakfast to more than 132,000 students at schools across the country. And on top of this, more than 200,000 kids seek food relief from their charities every single month. Donate at foodbank.org.au. There is a link in Nightbot right now to do so, and head to tasteofmultifish.com for more of Evil Spy Boy's proclivities. Speaking of someone who likes to be watched. Now let's back it up and look at the biggest stories of the week as voted on by us, the host of the backup, where we back it up and look at the biggest stories of the week. And Reeps, I want you to start us off with a story that made you back up and say, hey, that's a pretty big story.
Yeah, it is a pretty big story for me because, as we all know, Call of Duty is probably the biggest franchise in gaming. One of them, I should say. It's definitely in the top 10. Every year you come out and you see the final, financial scores of like, this is Call of Duty. This is the biggest game at the moment. Everybody bought it. But Activision is saying that it was kind of disappointing last year because they lost their projected income projections for
earnings.
Yeah, earnings. That's what I should say. Earnings for World War II, Vanguard, their new Vanguard game, because apparently, and here's the reason why they did not reach those earnings, it was set during World War II. So apparently, one of the biggest moments in history lost money because it just wasn't epic enough. And you got to think to yourself, yeah.
A war unprofitable for an American company.
What are we walking through now? So I just came to think to myself, it's like, did I get Vanguard? And I don't think I did buy it, but I don't think I've ever looked at a game and go, oh, that's set in World War II. Better not buy it. Or do you think that is something that's out there in the world that they're like, you know what? Actually, yeah, we're just going to blame it on the wars.
Yeah, well, Nick, you immediately had that reaction, right? Like, World War II, don't want it.
Yeah, this is weird because, it's on one hand, this is very much like a publisher blaming everything on something other than the fact that they just made a game that wasn't particularly interesting and that feature creep just doesn't, there's no feature creep, like they're just not really advancing the game in any meaningful way, and people are burnt out on the title, and the zombies mode was underwhelming, and the multiplayer wasn't great, and the campaign was kind of quite lackluster, all these sort of things. But I specifically did not like this Call of Duty because it was set in World War II. And so it really, and so like there's half of me is like, oh, shut up. And then the other half is, yeah, you got a point. That's why I'm not playing it anymore. I definitely immediately, so when they announced that it was World War II, was just like, oh God. And it's such a no, it's not a stupid reason. Fuck you. Video games are all stupid. So any thought that I have about them is not inherently stupid. Thank you very much. World War II guns are just not interesting. Like, it's always that weird balance where you go, okay, you have this older stuff that inherently is not as advanced and not as precise as newer weapons. And so then you're going into this gameplay mode with guns that feel hampered, and they're not particularly interesting to use. The scopes aren't as fun or exciting and whatever. Like, everything about it needs to feel older, and particularly when COD is on this thing where it feels like they do year after year, where they kind of build, get more and more extreme. We go to space, there's wall running, there's like mech suits and shit, and then they have to reset because they're like, we can't go much further into space, otherwise we become a sci-fi game.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point there, is because I think maybe in the back of my mind, I also do look at that and go, that the reason why I didn't get Vanguard, the COD game, is because it is kind of like old weaponry, especially when you're going from like modern warfare, where it's like all these cool explosions and things like that. But do you remember the game? I think it was called Shadow Complex. And I just remember for the simple fact that when you started the game, you had every ability, you had every gun, you had every upgrade. And it's like, look at all the fun that you can have. And then it's like, okay, the story progresses and it's like, we're going to take that all away from you. And you've got to now gain them back to have as much fun as you did at the beginning. And I feel like this itself with Vanguard is kind of the same as you said. You reach such a level that you've got to ground it again and build it back up. And I didn't even think about that till now, because you could be right. I think people are kind of done with the whole World War II thing. I mean, Battlefield 5 did the thing where they tried to make it's alternate reality of World War One or World War Two, whatever it was. And there's some really cool guns and things like that. And there's like, androids, and it just didn't really work.
Yeah. Yeah. Look, I'm totally in a minority where I see a World War II game and I'm like, cool, that makes sense. War happened. There were like these true moments of heroism that like they've tried to capture and totally just glorify, which is horrible, but also cool. And so like I like seeing that. I like seeing real locations rendered, and I love the machines that were made, like particularly planes and stuff for the World Wars. If anything good came out of the World Wars, it was advancements in aeronautical engineering. Oh my god, that's true.
Let's talk about this.
There were jets by the end of the Second World War. So it's that appeals to me, but I totally see how I'm in the minority, because I'm actually not really interested in Call of Duty. Like I'll play every third one because I'm like, yeah, it's time I play a COD again. So maybe that has synchronized with like a bit of fatigue for everyone with Call of Duty, and it just happened to be this game. But I think Nick's right in that the fatigue was there, and then they released a game that didn't even meet the expectations of the people that were kind of feeling a bit over it already. So it was like, why would I bother playing this? I'll just keep playing.
It was the straw that broke the camel's back, really, because it was like there were so many other issues with it. They've announced that the next COD is Modern Warfare 2, so they're immediately going back to Modern War, which we knew they were going to be. But they're also skipping next year, which I think is a really good thing, because they really need to figure out how to. Yeah, so they're not going to be putting out a COD next year. They're going to be putting out Warzone 2. And I think the biggest thing is that, like, in a world where live service games are such a thing, and even though they have Warzone, it doesn't feel great going like Modern Warfare 1 year and then like Cold War and then World War 2, and it's like every 12 months you're kind of totally resetting the feel of your video game as well. You're not just like adding new content. It's like everything about this feels different now, and then when you're used to, like, this one was sort of steadily going backwards because we were like Monday and then the 80s and then the 40s. Taking next year off, I think, is the best thing that this franchise can do, to just have a breather and go, what do we actually want the next 10 years of Call of Duty to be, other than a battle royale? Because they have to figure that question out.
Because the other headline floating around this week was that Activision currently have 3,000 employees working on Call of Duty titles.
Just wild.
It's like 30-something% of all of Activision is developing Call of Duty or working on Call of Duty and marketing, and it's 30% of their company, and they're a big company, Activision Blizzard. There's a lot of stuff they're making, but it's a third of it is in the Call of Duty basket. So
that's crazy, because this apparent mistake that they made with the World War II setting has apparently cost them $300 million in terms of missing their forecast for the projected year. So, I mean, I can understand it, but I am also glad to hear that they are taking a year off to kind of, maybe lay out some more groundwork rather than just pump it out.
Yeah. Hopefully Microsoft's $70 billion fills some of that gap for them.
Yeah, that's true. Very true.
To round this out, I see in chat, Keegan James says, I don't think World War II is a dead horse. I think that we're being made to play the same stories, and let's be real here, the same scenes from Saving Private Ryan over and over and over again. That war was massive. There are so many theaters, conflicts, themes, and participants that we've never seen in a video game. So many stories to be told, but for whatever reason, we're given the same story every single time. And even though it was World War I, Battlefield 1 was a great example of going like, that campaign was phenomenal, because it actually went, hey, here's things that you didn't know happened during here, or people that fought in a war that you have never seen in a video game before, and that was like, yeah, that's interesting, as opposed to just the same sort of like Call of Duty dudes going hard.
Oh, definitely.
Train set.
They do go hard though, don't they?
They do. Oh, they go so fucking hard. They go so hard. All right, Pete, speaking of going hard, what story made you hard this week?
My dongle was firm for xCloud. With the announcement, I saw Jeff Grubb for GamesBeat, VentureBeat, saying that within the next year they expect to see a dongle style adapter for the Game Cloud, xCloud, Microsoft's cloud gaming service. So you can play the xCloud, which is currently in beta on like handheld devices, PC, like through your browser and stuff, and works pretty well. So a dongle that you could plug into your television, like a Amazon Fire Stick or whatever they're called, and suddenly you've got the interface of xCloud, and you can play stream games directly to your television without the requirement of having, a few $100s worth of hardware to be playing like modern games streamed to your television. This is like, that will coincide with the release of the Samsung TV app as well. So if you have a Samsung television, there should be a native app that does that. So you don't even need to buy the Fire Stick. You've got the television and you're good to go. It's I think a really positive thing to be getting to a place where streaming servers are that good, that quality, where you can be playing high-end games without owning the hardware. It's just a barrier to entry that is getting removed, and it's good for families. So hopefully the dongle gets a few more people into Halo Infinite for me to kill.
I love the dongle thing. Again, it's that thing of moving away from the idea that there's a console that we need, that it's actually, we're moving towards a platform, which has been Microsoft's whole thing over the last couple of years. A lot of people this won't mean anything to the podcast viewers. A lot of people in chat, by the way, talking about this woman's hair. The ombre on her hair is phenomenal, and I think we just need to point that out. The color shift is
very lovely,
fantastic. The dongle thing is great. Like I think it means less. I mean, I could never use it at the moment. Like, there's no way my internet would be able to do anything on par with what I have from a console. But for traveling, for the idea that generally, if it's that sort of stick, you can stick it in most things. So you could take it to a hotel, put it in there. You can take it to when you go away to your parents' house. You can sort of like do that. I think that it opens gaming up to a lot more people. It also makes it way easier to justify multiple quote unquote consoles in a house when you have kids and families, where it's like everyone just has a dongle, which I assume is doing something. It must be doing something to justify not just using a browser app or the smart app in the TV is the only thing I was thinking. Like, there must be something about like connectivity to a controller.
Yeah, I'm sure it has like a Bluetooth, some Bluetooth adapter in it as well to make sure it can capture your controller, or because it can take any Bluetooth controller. Apparently, you'll be able to use BlueShock, DualShocks, and third-party things just by connecting. So. Yeah, I mean, they haven't announced it. It's just expected to be announced and be releasing in the next 12 months. So,
and they did talk about it a few months ago.
Yes,
Phil Spencer had said this is something we intend.
It is coming. Yeah, but yeah, I expect that it will. Serve as probably a bit of a brain as well, where not necessarily all televisions are going to have the kind of the power to snappily run the app and stuff as well. If it's a very basic television, which not everyone has the smart TVs that can run apps well. They're running Android and very poorly. We've got a Kogan television in the office, and it is like it takes 4 minutes to think about the menus and stuff. Like, oh god, why did televisions get smart?
Reaps for something like this. Oh no, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no. I was just thinking with that, it's like it's nice to see, because we're talking about this a little bit beforehand, in terms of there's always those kind of exclusives that happen on like the Xbox and the PlayStation and things like that. But it feels like that's slowly going away, and it is about the developers, and it's about kind of creating this atmosphere for what, so you can get it without having to buy, as you said, a $700 piece of equipment just to attach to your already $1,000 piece of equipment, TV, monitor, whatever it is. So I'm kind of excited for this, because it does seem like a shift away from what has been those exclusives. And I always think it's good, in terms of PlayStation and Xbox really funding those ventures. But Microsoft, I think in the long run, has got a really good thing going for it in terms of just how much pull they're doing with trying to make, PC, Xbox, all kind of like a hybrid of the same gaming environment. So really looking forward to it.
Yeah, the thing for me I was just going to say, if you got something about the device, I'm thinking more in general, the ability to stream games to your hardware without having super techie hardware or super advanced hardware. It just opens up streaming to a bunch of people that wouldn't necessarily be able to buy into it as well.
Yeah.
Like that's one of the hardest in points for anyone who wants to play games on platforms like Twitch is they need $1,500 worth of computer probably, or a $750 console. Or, I mean, they can buy older consoles for sure, and that's like, I wouldn't speak against doing that. If you can find a way to get going, get going. But this is a way for people to be playing the latest releases without the latest hardware streamed straight to their machine. They need a good internet connection, but then just feeding that out and commentating over the top of yourself playing that. That's a pretty, that you can do that off a laptop.
Yeah.
So that's exciting.
It also has the question about what this does for Sony as well, because it sort of turns Sony almost into like, so I'm projecting here, but let's go forward 5 years where the streaming stick is an incredibly viable way of interacting with the Microsoft platform. You've got PCs on one end, which are insanely expensive. You've got this stick on the other end, which I am guessing has to be on parity with something like a Chromecast or a Fire TV. Like, I don't think it could be a few $100s because that's too close to a console. I think, like, in my head, this thing's like $99 to $150 to sort of like justify its existence.
Yeah.
And then in the middle, suddenly you've got a PlayStation, which is, like a good computer, but limited at a bigger price point. I wonder if that has a negative or positive thing for Sony, like whether Sony can sort of pivot themselves a little bit to do the thing that they constantly do, which is like, we are the premier destination for the AAA, quadruple A gaming experience on a console, where the sort of like prestige games, and if they're now also like powerful hardware, because they'll be much more powerful for a Switch as well. I wonder if they double down on that, or they continue to try to play catch up with what Microsoft are doing.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point as well. But we're also seeing it kind of in streaming in general, where it's kind of like, there was Netflix back in the day, which was the be all end all when it came to streaming. And then Disney Plus comes out, and then, Stan and all this kind of thing. So I'm wondering if it'll ever be like a tier thing where they will make a truce, obviously, and then go, we want our PlayStation games on, the Xbox dongle as well. We can do that as a subscription, tier or whatever, or they just get like a union going. Because I do feel like Sony is in the situation now where they don't have as big of a bank, possibly as Microsoft, or a reach as Microsoft. Because
100%.
Microsoft is on pretty much every person's PC, unless Linux or Mac OS, things like that. But it really does come down to Sony and how they pivot, because this is going to be their formative years for the future. You can easily see, especially with the decline of E3 in general, that they're all doing their own press conferences, they're all doing their own dev updates and everything, that there kind of is this shift that is going on right now. And it's a really interesting time that Microsoft has gone, well, we're going to come out with our own, dongle that you don't have to have, as you said, thousands of dollars worth of equipment to use. So what does PlayStation do? Do they set their sights on, as you said, those premium big title events like, it's only coming out on HBO Max, but only coming out on Sony PlayStation Cloud or whatever it is? Or do they just go the route of, we're just going to make this, we're going to put all of our products, because sometimes you see their products on Steam as well. Like they are trying to do a digital kind of a storefront, but I'm not sure they know how they want to promote their products apart from being on the console.
Yeah, it's definitely been baby steps from Sony. They're a much more like conservative, safe company than Microsoft, because they don't have a vault full of gold with a duck swimming in it. It makes more sense for them to play conservatively and focus on their strengths, which I think they've been really good at for the past decade.
Yeah.
Even through from the back of the PS3 era through to now, I think they've been really solidly like a games first platform, and premium gaming platform. But it's the world is shifting faster than they are, and I don't think they'll necessarily lose out by holding their ground. it's just they're just not playing the same game necessarily.
Yeah,
at the same time.
Agreed.
The final thing on this, Srom55 in chat said the dongle, in my opinion, is a dumb thing, and hasn't clarified why, but has potentially multiple reasons. But what I think is interesting about the timing with this is that I think one of the things that has defined Xbox over the last few years is impeccable timing on iterative development of their platform, and that they're not coming out with the dongle and going, this is our new console. They have come out with the console. They have come out with a cheaper version of the console. They have come out with streaming on browser, and they're now going, oh, and we have this thing as well, which you can use. That even if it doesn't work perfectly, even if some people around the world can't use it because our internet isn't fast enough, whatever, it's not the only way to do it. And I think that that's what happened with Game Pass. Game Pass came out and people were like, oh, this is interesting, but it's like, it's not really compelling really right now. It's kind of like there's not too much in the catalog, and it seems to be not exactly like they're games that I've already played or whatever. And then over a couple of years, Game Pass became incredible. And the same with like the xCloud streaming. At first, it did not work particularly well, and it was so limited. And it is getting better and better, but it is not the only way to play those games. It's an additional way to play them. And so I think that that is the key with this as well, that they've gone, we're going to put this thing out, potentially, and it will work for some people, it won't work for others. But in 3 years' time, 4 years' time, this could be the main way that you interface with this. And we've had 3 or 4 years of gaining ground with this in the same way they have with Game Pass. Whereas you look at other console manufacturers and stuff, and they're like, you look at Nintendo, you look at Sony, and it's kind of like, we put out our thing and then we just stop. And it's like there's no real chance to continue to develop, and slowly gain a market share. And I think that's been such a huge part of Microsoft's success, is this slow burn building of something until suddenly it becomes too compelling to not have it, and then you tip over. So we'll see. We'll see what happens with this, but I think it's a no-brainer, and in a couple of years, it could be the main way that a lot of people are interacting with Xbox games.
Yeah, I mean, they've got the whole market, don't they? They've just got the whole market now. You've got your choice, and you don't have to buy it if you don't want to. But if you don't have the money, there's an option right there.
Microsoft and Xbox have everything except for Crystal Dynamics, because they have been sold. Square Enix sold off Crystal Dynamics, the developers of Tomb Raider, the Tomb Raider reboot games, or all the Tomb Raider games, Deus Ex and more, to the Embracer Group. And this was a sale that caught many people's eyes for two reasons. One, Embracer Group is snatching up just an absolute ton of studios, and are kind of just still very quiet about what they're doing with them. But secondly, it got sold for... they're embracing them. That's all they're doing. It's just...
We love you, video games.
Let us hold you. But the main reason that this was making huge news, besides the fact that it got sold in the first place, is it got sold for $300 million, which US, which is just a shockingly low number, I think, from the outside to look at. Like, if you had said to me, how much would you pay for the Tomb Raider IP? I would have said around $300 million, just for the words Tomb Raider to be able to make those games. And they are getting so much more than that. They are getting, obviously, the studio, so the staff, to be able to work on this. They're getting Tomb Raider, Deus Ex IP, Legacy of Kain IP, Thief IP, and more. Square are going to hold on to Just Cause, Outriders, and Life is Strange, so they're not losing those IP. But Crystal Dynamics also...
they hold on to Outriders, or could they not sell it?
I mean, I think I saw a...
They have a history of not selling that game.
Yeah, it didn't turn a profit, I think, in the first year. Which was...
Sure, you're fine.
I liked it. And they also made the Avengers game, Crystal Dynamics as well, which underperformed financially. A lot of the speculation around this has been that Square are trimming down and dumping everything that they really don't need in order to make themselves more attractive for a sale, because the return that Crystal Dynamics have gotten on a lot of their games hasn't been huge. Like, they have been making a profit, but they are not these games aren't mega hits. They're selling nearly as much as it costs to make and market them in the first place. So they're not doing huge business. On the books, there's a ton of staff that are making these games at a time where capital is really cheap and money is really cheap, and everyone is looking to sell or buy developers. That Square. The word that I've seen from a ton of people is that Square are trying to make themselves attractive to be bought by PlayStation. And basically they would just sell to PlayStation, essentially just, we are Final Fantasy, just buy Final Fantasy. And you don't need all this extra stuff on board. So we're actually just selling it almost like fire sale style to get rid of it, so that they are attractive enough and small enough that it is a justifiable purchase for another big company to be able to come in and sort of boost them like that. Pete, do you think that there's any
truth to that?
Reality where that could happen? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, Square are a very well respected studio, publisher, and developers. So the studios that they have below the Square banner typically get a lot of interest. Whenever you see the Square logo pop up at an E3, which you'll never see again, it's like, okay, there's some serious like dev behind this. It's going to be something. I'll probably hate it, but it's going to sell like hotcakes in Japan. And so it's interesting to see that. To me, these are the most Western of their IP that they got rid of, particularly in Deus Ex and Tomb Raider, hugely popular to American and Australian audiences and European audiences. So that was to me the thing that stood out and could speak to Sony purchasing the remainder. So that could align with that theory for sure. But to me, it means it's nice that Tomb Raider is still going to be on multi-platform if someone does snap it up.
Yeah. And Reeps, Tomb Raider, we haven't seen a new Tomb Raider game in a while.
Yeah.
We haven't seen a Deus Ex game in ages. We haven't seen a Legacy of Kain game in friggin' decades?
Probably, yeah.
Are these IP that you're interested in seeing, and hopefully Embracer plan on actually doing something with and not just selling like old versions of them?
Definitely. As we know, the big thing these days is just to reboot and go updated graphics. But I really do hope that they can take those franchises and give them legs. Because I know when Tomb Raider came out, people were making that kind of illusion that it was kind of like an Uncharted, maybe a lesser Uncharted, which I didn't think was the case. I think they tried to do something new. They took the same kind of genre, but it really was different from the days of back on the old PlayStation trying to find the cheat code to make, Lara Croft naked. You know what I mean? Like it was actually a franchise that you could enjoy playing. That wasn't this stilted thing. And it was a great kind of gritty take on Lara Croft in general. So I do hope that they take those franchises, especially Deus Ex, because I love that kind of cyberpunk science fiction world and really expand on it. I hope it isn't just a thing where it's like they buy, as you said, the IP just so that they can reiterate and go, all those games that you loved back in the day, it's a new layer of skin on it, and we're going to sell it as the ultimate
now it's on
copy.
Switch.
Yeah, it's on Switch, everything like that. So I really do, because I had such a great time with the first one. I remember specifically, I played Tomb Raider on my 360. I was in a very small apartment at the time, so I put my Xbox on a vertical, and then my cat knocked it over, and it was at the bit where I was like finishing one of the traps or the puzzles there, and I just heard this grating sound, and I was like, oh, I must have done it. And no, it ruined it. And but it was that thing of like I had to buy the game twice, so that's why it stuck with me. I should have bought that $5 EB, was it renewal of
the warranty?
The warranty. Should have bought it. But yeah, it holds place because I really love the Uncharted series. I really love the Tomb Raider series, and let's just hope that it isn't just a thing where it's forgotten about and they're like, we'll just use it for the movies or, making vinyl pops, things like that. They actually do something with it. So maybe this is a good thing because they haven't touched it, as you said, for years. Let's hope they can actually make something new and make it more exciting.
It's interesting because, Embracer just own so many things that... And they're just very quiet about, in terms of an identity of what they are. Like they're kind of this capital company that are just amassing video games. They have Saber Interactive that are like a port house. They bought Gearbox Entertainment for like $1.3 billion last year, I think. They own Aspire Media. They have mobile game publishers. They have board game publishers. They just own tons. And they bought, they kicked this off when they sort of bought all the THQ stuff in that big THQ fire sale a few years ago. But they haven't really said what their intentions are. They haven't really put a stamp on who they are as a brand or a collective putting all these studios together. So I really do hope that they are going, we want to continue developing this, and they're not just sort of like buying IP to sell later in the future as sort of a back catalog or something and dumping the people involved.
Yeah. Especially like we talked before about, how COD didn't hit their projected earnings by 300 million. They could have bought all these franchises for that amount, which is crazy. Like it really is. Yeah.
Yeah. If they just made a game about World War III instead.
And then the final thing on this was, because I didn't mention at the beginning, they also bought Eidos Montreal, which made Guardians of the Galaxy. The only thing I want to come out of this is that I would love a new Guardians of the Galaxy game, because even though it underperformed, the expectations that Square have for a video game is always, it sells as much as Final Fantasy. That it sucks. So I would love to see a new one. But apparently one of the reasons that Square have said that they're dumping some of this stuff is that they're looking to get into NFT and Bitcoin and blockchain and all the fucking buzzwords, which seems like a terrible time to be doing that, because every time I see any stories about NFTs right now, it's that the market's falling out, that servers are crashing, that nothing works, that it all sucks. I don't know anything about this, but it just seems like at the moment where all the stories about any sort of like blockchain or NFT thing is, not only do people not like, the broad gaming community don't like it, it's actually going terribly financially. And then Square are like, we're in. It's time for us to shine. We're going to sell some of our best brands and just go and do that instead.
And buy a piece of this sinking ship.
Yes, bless their cotton socks, bless them.
So to round out the news this week, we got an announcement of the new Warcraft game coming, and it is not a PC game. It is the long-rumored mobile game from Blizzard. It's called Warcraft Arclight Rumble. It's a mobile strategy, fast-paced hero and villain collector with a, quote, vast PvE campaign. They said it's inspired by tower defense games, but it's more of a tower offense game. They've released a bit of a gameplay trailer. It looks very much like a Clash of Clans style mobile game. I feel like, Pete, Warcraft is dead now. Like, is it like we're never going to see a new Warcraft on PC? This is what it is now. Like, this is what Warcraft is.
You all have phones, don't you?
You all have phones. What are you so upset about? And then in terms of delays, Overworld MMO, the day before, has been delayed from June 21st this year to March 1st of 2023, which got revealed on Thursday. It's notable because it is the #1 most wishlist game on Steam right now. MMOs, incredibly popular.
So
they
huge.
Launch and then they just disappear. It's such a weird thing. Like, there's so much hunger for it and no one seems to be able to figure out what to do with it. So they're taking another year to hopefully polish that, and maybe this is the one. And that is literally all the video game news that happened this week. There's nothing else you need to know.